So you want to know how I 3D printed this invincible mask? Well, you're in luck. Because if you're coming from the full video, you'll know that this is a The first step was to get a digital scan of my face and my head. And you could do this a number of different ways. I've done it in the past with my phone's camera with photogrammetry. I've done it with the Face ID infrared dot projector. Those are a little bit more tedious, but for this video, I'm going to be using a 3D scanner sent to me by Creality. This is the Raptor Pro. It doesn't really matter how you get there, but in the end you should end up with a point cloud, which is kind of a physical representation of 3D data in space. And from there you go from a bunch of tiny little points in space fused into a solid watertight mesh, which you can then bring into any sculpting or modeling software of your choice. You could use Blender, which is a free alternative, but I'm going to be using ZBrush. And just as an overview, this is not a ZBrush tutorial. If you're looking for that, I'm happy to link some resources, but this assumes that you have some underlying experience with ZBrush, although I will try and explain things as much as I can fundamentally. The nice thing about using a 3D scanner is that the units are usually correct because things have to be dimensionally accurate. I remember when I did this previously with photogrammetry or other point cloud methods, I had to literally use calipers to measure the distance between the corners of my eyes to calibrate that mesh. So this is nice. So what I'm doing here is I'm trying to center my face as much as possible. I know that my face is not symmetrical, but the goal is I want the outside of the mask to be as symmetrical as possible, while the inside still conforms to my non-symmetrical face. So I'm just getting it as close as I can so that I could do most operations at the same time, but still treat it as a non-symmetrical mesh on the inside. So here I am just masking out the general shape that I want the mask to be. It doesn't have to be perfect, but the closer you get to the actual final shape, the easier it will be for you later on. Then this next step is called an extract, which basically pulls that masked area out and gives it some thickness. As a placeholder, I'm just going to drop in 2 spheres for the eye so I can roughly know what it's going to look like. And earlier I mentioned that my face is not symmetrical, but I want the outside of the mask to be as symmetrical as possible. So here I try and knock down some of those features, add some more features to make it a little bit more stylized, and hide some of those asymmetrical features of my face. At this point, the mesh is still really messy. I'm not really paying much attention to the topology. I just want to get it into a rough block out of what I want it to look like. And with any sort of live action adaptation of a cartoon character or comic book character, you have to make some decisions on style, because this mask will not move with my eyebrows and change with my emotions. So you see me fiddling around a lot with how angry I want him to look, but it'll change a lot throughout this video. Alright, this is the annoying part. So the mesh that I have here is just triangulated mesh. I don't really pay much attention to the topology up until this point. This is when I use the Z-remesher tool. And what this does is it takes that messy, jumbled, triangulated mesh and tries to generate some low poly topology for it. One thing that I did keep in mind is when I extracted that mesh, I made sure to keep the poly groups separate for the inside, the outside, and the edge. That way when I do Z-remesh, I could keep those groups so I can operate on them separately. I think the main piece of advice that I would give for people starting in ZBrush or any sort of sculpting or modeling program is work with as little geometry as you can. I think that is the main pitfall that I see, is people subdivide way too much and they get too much detail. That's like trying to paint in skin detail before you block out your forms. You'll also notice that I Z-remeshed with symmetry turned on because I want the topology to be symmetric, and you'll see me either manually move things to conform to my face or project the actual underlying geometry. So I'm still trying to work with symmetry as much as I can and only breaking out of it if I absolutely need to. Oh, and when the mesh turns really smooth, I'm not actually subdividing. It's called dynamic subdivision, which just previews what it would look like if you did subdivide, but that geometry actually isn't there. So when you're moving the mesh, you're still moving the low poly model. And this lets you still focus on the large underlying forms without focusing on detail. If you saw the video, which I hope you did, because, you know, why would you be here? There's a part where I actually have to cut off the top of the forehead because when I scanned this, I didn't do it with color data, so I wasn't able to see where my hairline actually started. I mean, I knew it was pretty up there, but I think I just overshot by a little bit. And here's when I start to realize that some of the topology is actually pretty messed up. So I think what I did was I actually just deleted everything but the outside, and I used the Z-remesher brush with Q-mesh, and I just re-extruded that inwards. So now I've got a lot cleaner topology, and I add one more edge loop so that when I subdivide, it's a little bit more blockier. At this point, I start to add a little color just to get a better mental image of what it'll look like painted. And still just a lot more back and forth fiddling on how stylized I want this and how angry I want Mark to be looking. And I did end up going with a bit more of an angry look just because this is an evil variant of Mark. If it wasn't, I think I would have gone a different direction. The original mask actually wraps around the entire head, but for the long hair Invincible variant, obviously that's not possible. So the edge of the mask kind of has to follow along the edge of the hairline. What I did here was I just duplicated the base mesh. I deflated it by a tiny bit and changed the color to black. This was just so I can kind of roughly visualize where my hair starts. And obviously that didn't work super well, but this was pretty good for the sideburns area. This is a pretty good way to block out clothes as well. If you have a model and you want to start to sculpt out clothes, you can duplicate that, change the color, and deflate it a little bit. That way you can still sculpt through it, and whatever you built up on comes through the original mesh. I do a bit more refinement, but this is when I really start to incorporate for the asymmetrical aspects of my face. What I did was I turned that base mesh into a subtractive live Boolean, so that face is being cut out of the mask. So any part that looks beige right now is being basically pressed up against my face. And anywhere you see yellow, that means there is a gap. So I'm just manually using the move brush and pulling that mesh closer to my face and thickening it in areas that I need it to be thickened. And this is a trick that I learned. What you do is you import a cube, and you also turn that into a subtractive live Boolean. And if you move that up and down, that you can kind of get almost like a slicer view when you're 3D printing, just so you can see where the thick and thinner areas of a mesh are, and you can adjust accordingly. So I saw that the area on the eyebrows were a bit too thin, so I added some thickness there. And because this was going to be 3D printed, I didn't want it to just be smooth plastic. I wanted it to be a bit textured, like fabric, and if you just project a texture or noise directionally, you'll get a lot of distortion on the edges. So what I did was unwrap the UVs, and that way I could apply that noise on the UVs. And the way you do that is if you go to the Noisemaker tab like I'm in here, you'll see that little button that says 3D that's selected by default. Just select UV right next to it. And I'm just playing around with the size, rotation, and intensity until I get something that I like. You'll also notice that I masked out the inside because I don't need or want the inside to be textured. Once I was happy, I hit apply, and I think now is the time to move on to the eye meshes. I did a similar approach where I did a subtractive Boolean of the 3D scan from the spheres that I added in earlier. Then I did another Z-remesh operation while keeping polygroups just to clean up that geometry. And my plan was to essentially punch a hole through each one of these quads, but you'll see that the topology kind of concentrates in weird areas when it comes to spheres. So I tried to Z-remesh again with some Z-remesher guides to try and force it to be more of a grid pattern without those distorted areas. And it's a little better, but you'll see that in the corners they still kind of distort, which is hard to get around. And I later learned that for the masks in Squid Game, I think they encountered the same issue, but they sort of just left it. Michael Pavlovich, which is one of my favorite ZBrush sculptors and instructors, has a great video where he encountered the same issue.
Now, interestingly enough, on this reference, let me see if I can get a nice big view here. It actually, you see how it kind of if I was to model this and it put this kind of distorted geometry holes in there, I'd probably have it sent back. The art director would look at that and go, it looks obviously like you modeled this thing. See this little kind of a pole right here, and you go through and you just put little dots on here, or extrude or inset, and that's the result you're gonna get. Or if you apply UVs and you do it, and then you use your UVs to, you know, tile a dot pattern, and then use those to determine where your holes are going to go. You're going to see that's kind of warped and distorted. This right here is a result of either distorted UVs or the geometry creating this effect. So the fact that it has it in there, it's kind of easier on me because I'm just going to be doing the same tricks anyway. We got our holes going. I think that was geodistortion. I think they literally like did this type of thing and then just 3D printed it or something. Just guessing. So that's one way.
I actually did almost the same exact process, except I did spend a little bit more time trying to fix those distortion areas. You'll see the edge, I just kind of stretched backwards so that before you get to those distorted corners, they're already cut out by my face. What micropoly does is it basically replaces every polygon with a tileable geometry. So there's a bunch that you can choose from. I think the one I went with was just this hole. So if you subdivide your mesh and you have more quads, then your micropoly will be smaller. Once I was happy with the size and shape of that, I went ahead and did the same thing with the Z-remesher tool and Q-mesh to add some thickness. And after you subdivide, it gives you some nice rounded edges. And this is kind of just a freestanding fragile mesh, so I went ahead and extracted a border or a frame to kind of hold the entire mesh inwards. Then to get it ready for 3D printing, I had to decimate this humongous mesh into something a little bit more reasonable. I started with around almost 20 million points, and I got that down to just about 2. And to further reduce that, I actually took the base mesh and decimated that even further and used that to Boolean out the inside again, just because I knew I didn't need that much detail on the inside. To hold the mask on my face, I was going to use some elastic straps, so I'm using a cube and just Boolean subtracting in some slots on the edge right here. That's about it on the design side. For the printing, I mentioned I used the Form 4 with some Tough 1000 resin, which is one of their new engineering resins with a lot of impact resistance, and I figured that would be a good option for this. That was printed in about 4 hours, and I cured it with the Cure V2 on the low warp settings. If I were to do this again, I would probably use the Tough 1500 resin because it's a little bit more stiff, but the 1000 worked fine. In my previous YouTube video, I built the opposite of a 3D printer. It was called the Deform 1, and it was the April Fool's joke for Formlabs. But there was a part where I genuinely didn't know what I wanted to do next with the narration, so I just burst into song instead and slapped it on.
And for the next part, don't wanna talk about it, I'm sick of talking about it, I'm gonna sing about it instead. And took a jigsaw to the stand.
And people in the comments loved that, so I kind of wanted to bring that same energy back to this video. But for the purposes of this video specifically, I primed it with some Vallejo gray primer, just to give it a more neutral base to start with. If I was making more than one or just had more time to do this, I would have probably designed a jig to mask off the eyes, but because it was a one-off, I just used some tape instead. For the paints, I used Extivet paints, which I checked and they're no longer on Amazon, but they're pretty cheap and they did the trick. And I'm not an expert at model making or painting, I don't really know what I'm doing, but I know that there's a technique to use some watered down brown or black paint just to get into the recesses of your model to make it look weathered and dirty, so that's what I did here. And here's where I realized I made the forehead too big, so I used the Han Boost C1 ultrasonic cutter to cut that off. It went through like butter.
This is the part where I try the mask on again. And it's a good thing, even though my forehead's still a little too big.
And with the sort of eye meshes, you kind of want to paint the insides black because if light gets in and reflects around, it just makes it a lot hazier and harder to see. The sewing, as straightforward as it was absolutely awful because I am terrible at sewing, but I basically just took in the sides until it wasn't loose. I cut the sleeves off and I cut the mask off, and I did my best attempt in trying to sew those together. I probably could have picked thread that matched the color, but again, I had 2 days to do this, so I was in a rush. And last step was to sew in the elastic straps, and that was pretty much it. That was the whole project. I used the same acrylic paints to do some blood splatters. I probably could have used some fabric paints, but this worked. As always, the model is available to download on my Patreon. Well, that just about wraps up how I made this mask. If you have any additional comments, feel free to leave them in my Discord. That's where I talk about a lot of behind the scenes progress on my projects, as well as do some giveaways. And a huge thank you to all of my free Patreon supporters. Let me know if this type of video format for behind the scenes content works for you as I try and scale up in long form YouTube content. And if you want to support my work, the best way to do that is through Patreon. I'll also have my Ko-Fi and Throne linked, but liking, commenting, sharing, or engaging in any way helps just as much. Thanks for watching.